Welcome to Hustle and Flow with Heather Hubbard, episode 103. Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard, and I was a litigator, partner, and practice group leader at an AmLaw 200 firm. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you embrace your ambition without selling your soul? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back. I am your host, Heather Hubbard. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you have been listening to the podcast and you're enjoying it and you've not yet left a rating or review, please do so. You can do that on iTunes or whatever podcast app you listen to, although iTunes really is the most important in terms of getting the word out. So those ratings and reviews really do make a difference, and I would really appreciate it if you would take a moment to leave it a rating and review. Okay, so let's talk about billable hours. I know that's not a fun topic, but it's something that most people deal with every day. So I thought it would be the perfect time to discuss this. Mostly because it's the new year. Many of us are focused on new behaviors, new habits, really cleaning things up. If you missed episode 99, go back and listen to that on creating new habits. This will definitely relate to that. And then last January, I did an episode called Taming the Billable Hour. That was episode number 50. And it was really, how do you go ahead and plan for hitting your target? And that means making sure you bill enough to hit your target and making sure that you don't bill too much and go way over. You know, you may be like, what? Who would do that? But there are many attorneys who way overbill because they don't quite have it set up right. And I had an attorney in Memphis. She was like, it revolutionized the way I do my billable hours because I used to always overbill at the end of every year. And I wanted to get out of that. And that particular episode helped her better budget the billables so that she could hit her target and not go way over or under. This episode is a little bit different because it's not just about how do you plan for and budget your billables, but how do you capture your billables? I have yet to run a mastermind where there was not at least one person in the group who really struggled with capturing their billable hours. I think it is very common. I know when I was helping lead the litigation group at my firm, we had many attorneys who struggled with at least some aspect of this as well. So if you struggle with getting your time down, know this, you are not alone. You are not alone. This is very common for lawyers. And it's one of the reasons why lawyers hate the billable hour. And if you hate it, there are a lot of alternatives. You can do fixed fees, other things, but that's not what we're talking about today. If you have to bill your hours and if you have to capture your hours, this episode is for you, assuming you have a hard time doing that. If you have a system down, skip over this episode. But maybe you have a friend who struggles and you can share this with them. So let's start with what is absolutely necessary in order to get in front of whatever your issue might be related to capturing billable hours. And for some people, that means they don't capture it on a daily basis and they find themselves at the end of the month having to take an entire day or 2 days to basically recreate their entire month. For others, it is just a matter of getting it into the system and edited. There's like too many steps, so it's super inefficient. And for others, it's just a matter of you don't write it down. So you get the big things, but not the little things. And at the end of the month, you're like, I know I worked more than this, but I don't have as much to show for it. Okay, so everybody's issues look a little bit different. But no matter what your issue is, the only way to overcome this, the only way to really get in front of it and find a solution that works for you is to be open to there being a solution. And that may sound really simple. It may not seem to make sense that that would be required, but it is. If you've read the Life and Law Blueprint, you know that step one is mindset. If you don't have that blueprint, it's free. You can just go to heatherjoyhubbard.com and scroll down to the bottom. It's part of the free opt-in at the bottom. But the blueprint says that step number one for really anything in helping, have a balanced and thriving career and life is mindset. And that can be really frustrating and really annoying when you struggle with something. To think that you have to change your own mindset first can just, in many ways, be infuriating, right? It's not even frustrating. It's infuriating because we like to believe that it's not just our mindset, that there's something else at play. But mindset really is key. For people that struggle with capturing their billable hours, I've noticed that most of them have the same excuse, which is, I've tried everything and I'm just not good at billable hours. I'm just not good at capturing it. And some of you listening are probably thinking like, I'm talking about you specifically, but I'm not. I'm talking about all kinds of people, hundreds of people that I've had conversations with. So I promise you, I am not picking on any one of you. But very few people come to me and say, I struggle with billable hours and I know I can fix it. I just need the right tool. Most come and say, like, I just can't do this. Like, I just can't do billable hours. I just hate billable hours. I have tried everything and it just doesn't work for me. So when you start from that mindset, and hey, that doesn't even mean, I'm not saying you've not tried a million different things. I'm not saying it's not worked to date. But what I am saying is that as soon as you adopt that attitude, it will never work. You will prove yourself right over and over again. Not only is that human nature, that is like the core of being a lawyer, right? We tend to be stubborn and we prove ourselves right. We have a hard time admitting that we might be wrong. And from a mindset perspective, we've talked about this before, you can only take in so many things. You can only see so many things. And so your brain starts to create shortcuts. And we have these neural pathways. And as soon as your brain gets in its mind that that is something that is hard, it is something that you cannot do, it is not something you want to do, your brain will give you evidence. It will show you evidence over and over and over again that you are right, even if you're wrong. So Henry Ford has a saying, I don't know if I'm getting this exactly right. He has a quote that says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. That's the concept, right? That once you've made up your mind that you cannot do something, you've already set yourself up for failure. I mean, you literally might as well stop trying because you are going to prove every single day that you are right, that you cannot capture your billable hours. So unless you are willing to admit that maybe you're wrong, unless you're willing to say, you know what, maybe there is a solution out there for me and I just haven't found it yet. Unless you're willing to say, I am open to believing that I can actually learn to capture my billable hours, you will never be able to do so. And that really starts with you. And it is simply a decision. It is simply a decision as to whether or not you're going to be open to that possibility. And if you're not, you might as well not listen to the rest of this episode, and you shouldn't even try to test it because you're going to prove to yourself that it's not possible. And that may sound harsh, but I'm just trying to tell you the truth here. So many people get in these ruts and routines where they say that it really frustrates them, but they're not willing to make this mindset shift to help them move through it, to help them overcome it. And that's really you just choosing to remain stuck. But the odd thing is, most people who struggle with this, it really negatively impacts their life. If you have to give up an entire day or 2 days at the end of the month to try to recreate your time, it's something that you dread. Like, you don't look forward to it. You're not like, oh, it's the end of the month. I get to now spend a day or two recreating my time. And at this point, it's non-billable. It's like complete admin. It's so inefficient. You may, have a spouse or children or others who get really annoyed with you at the end of every month because you're out of pocket, you're out of commission, you can't spend time with them because you've not captured your billables all month. And maybe it's not even them, maybe it's you that's frustrated. You want to go do something and you can't. If you find yourself telling your friends or others, oh, I can't go do this because I have to get my billables in at the end of the month. I mean, that's negatively impacting your life. And if you find that, you're really struggling to hit your billable hours every year when you're in the office, you're doing the work, but for some reason you're not capturing your hours, that's negatively impacting you. It's negatively impacting your career trajectory. It's probably negatively impacting your compensation and your bonuses. And it probably doesn't make you feel good, right? So if these things are really impacting you in a negative way, it's worth considering whether or not it's time to let go of the story that you're simply not good at doing this, and there is a solution and there is a way, and you look forward to figuring out what it is. Attitude is everything. If you choose to be positive, if you choose to focus on there being a solution and finding the right solution for you, you are far more likely to succeed at this than if you keep the attitude that it just doesn't work for you and you hate it. Okay? And I'm not picking on you. I do this too, not with this particular issue, but when I find myself saying that, right? When I catch myself saying I'm not good at something or I hate something, that is generally that's a huge red flag where I have to stop and say, wait, I'm creating a story and I'm actually creating the outcome. I'm creating this outcome by saying this. So that's the majority of this episode, but it is the most important piece. Okay. Mindset. Once you're open to it, then you've got some solutions. I'm going to go over a few different hacks. Now, you may say, I've tried it before. No worries. Maybe try it again. Maybe try it again for at least a week with a positive attitude. When you tried it before, you may not have had a positive attitude, okay? You may not have been open to the possibility that it would work. So give each of these a try. And if none of them work for you the first round, then go through them again, or choose the one that seemed like there was the least resistance and choose it again. Keep working it, keep modifying it until you find the solution. But again, you got to start with, there is a solution and I'm going to find it and I'm going to positively improve my life by figuring this out. All right, so let's start with the first hack. The first hack is a timer. Now, if you're in a big firm, I guarantee you have timers set into your billing software. And even most of the solo practice management softwares that people use, they generally have timers built in as well. If you think yours does not have a timer, then reach out to support, whether that is, again, if you're in big law, just reach out to your tech support internally. If you're like solo small firm, you can reach out to the tech of your actual software provider and find out if there's a timer feature that you're just not familiar with. And the key is not just to use the timer. Okay, we're going to pull some pieces together to make this work. The first is you want to go ahead and have pulled up the information that's required to be able to actually submit it at the end of the day. So if you know you're getting ready to work on a particular matter, so let's say you're going to work on a motion or something, in that instance, you've kind of planned ahead. You realize it's about to happen. So you can easily pull up. So before you work on the motion, right, you just sit down and say, okay, I'm getting ready to work on this motion. I'm going to pull up my system and I'm going to enter the client. I'm going to enter the matter. I'm going to enter any information that has to be entered. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in the description what I'm getting ready to do. Before I ever start it, I'm going to write in what I'm getting ready to do. And if it later needs to be separated out because maybe you can't do block billing or even the billing that gets submitted, every single task has to be entered separately. What you can do is go ahead and put like a parentheses and you can track it and then put the times in that. And then if you just get that one submitted, your assistant can then go in and separate them out the way they need to be separated. That's like a sub hack. Okay, so you get all that set up and then you hit that timer and you start working. That is the easiest scenario. Now, this is routine stuff. This is habit stuff. And that's where you might want to go back and listen to episode 99. Your brain is already in a routine of not doing that. So changing that routine is going to require some effort. Okay. It's going to require some effort because it's just not what you're going to naturally go to do. So you got to work in that new habit. So you get it up and then you do the work. All right. Now someone walks into your office or the phone rings. Right? Because this is what being a lawyer really looks like. At that very moment, you hit the timer. At that very moment, you hit the timer. Again, this is going to require rewiring your habits. it's not going to be super, super easy. All right. But like, that's what any habit is. So if you want to get in front of this, just know it's going to require a little bit of work, but it's worth it to stop allowing this to negatively impact your life. So you're going to learn to hit that timer, to pause it every time someone walks in or a phone rings or an email comes in, anytime you get distracted. This is one of the reasons why it's super important to do some blocked work and to turn the dang email notifications off, or to tell your assistant not to take phone calls, because if you're allowing all that stuff to come in all the time, that is 100% part of your problem, and it's going to be really hard to get in front of it. Multitasking and capturing billable time, oil and water, does not go together. So try not to do that stuff, okay? All right. But phone call comes in, someone walks in your office, you pause it. At that very moment, and this will take like 2 seconds, you want to pull up another entry and hit that timer. Now, at this point, you've not filled anything out, right? Because you don't have time. You don't know necessarily what the phone call's about. You don't know what the person walking in the door is going to ask you a question. Let's say that you had that email notification up and you saw it, even though you're like, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I just saw it. Okay, fine. Go ahead, stop that timer, pull up a new one up. You don't know what it's about yet. But here's what you do. You pull it up and then you start the timer again. Start the timer again. You don't have to yet know what it's about. And then wait until you get through that. So let's say you get that email and you write a quick response. Well, then you can code it and stop the timer. Or it could be that you then go do a lot more, right? Related to that, but you're moving with that timer. It could be at the end of the conversation of the person that walked in the room. It could be that they were just coming, to shoot the, like it may not be billable or non-billable, but you still had the practice of the timer. So you may see that like when you stop the timer, you're like, wait, I just gave up 0.8 hours of my life to a conversation about nothing. All right. That's one way you can start figuring out where your time leaks are, because you may think I'm doing all this work, but I'm not capturing it. But if you actually see all the times where you're spending time that's not billable or even non-billable, you may start to notice patterns that you didn't even realize existed. Okay. But it could be that like the person walks in and it is a non-billable issue, right? It's some kind of admin issue, but you're still supposed to capture your time around it. Well, again, it's right there. You can code it. And I get you're probably like, yes, but I don't have time to code that stuff. It's important that my assistant does it because that's more efficient. Well, if you've got a problem capturing your time, you're not actually losing efficiency. You're going to be gaining efficiency. And once you get in the habit of doing this, it literally takes a few seconds, because you'll get really, really good at it in the coding piece. Okay. So that is the biggest hack that you can do, is using those timers and just getting yourself in the habit of, I don't move on unless and I'm not going to leave the day until I've got information in there. What you don't want to do is have all these timers where write your timing stuff, but then you don't even remember what it related to. And you're trying to figure out, okay, well, it shows that it was this time to this time. So let me go back and look at my email and no, you're back to the end of the month trying to recreate what happened. So even if you pull up the timer and you don't have it coded, as long as you write in a super short description, that will help you. But I encourage you to write out the full description as opposed to just a cheat sheet, because again, the longer the time goes by, you're going to forget what that means. So if you need to do the cheat sheet just for purposes of getting through a quick conversation or a quick email, then get in the habit that at the end of the day, you're going to clean that up before you leave. But again, I highly encourage that you do it as you go. Do it as you go. It is the most efficient way to do it. It's going to help you capture the right amount of time. Because what happens when you aren't doing the timers and you try to recreate time, at the end of the month, you're probably a little concerned because you don't want to make stuff up. And here's the thing. If you're waiting until the end of the month, you are making stuff up. You just are. But you are probably an ethical person. So you're concerned that you don't want to lie about how much time you spent on it. So you underestimate. You're underestimating. This is why the timers can help. And this is why if you're doing it all, at the same time, it makes sure that you're capturing the right amount. And I bet it's a lot more than you're doing otherwise. It's just so much easier this way. Okay. So that's hack number one. It is the one that I recommend first and foremost. Again, having the positive attitude, knowing that it is a habit change. And of course, it's not going to come easy to you because that's not the way you've been doing it. But that it has the possibility, if you stick with it, to truly change your life. Because people that struggle with capturing billables, like I said, it really negatively impacts them. So give it a good go. All right. Hack number 2. If you just refuse to be in the software system, if you don't like the timers or don't have the timers, and you just like, no, my assistant has to do all of this, then I recommend you creating these templates. Okay. So depending on how many matters you have or how many clients that you have, you can go ahead and create templates that have their names on it, right? So again, the more you have, this is not going to be as doable. But if you don't have a ton of clients or matters, you can go ahead and create these sheets that almost look like grids, big boxes, that has the client in the matter or just the client itself. So that as you go through work throughout the day, it's the same concept, but you would write down what you're working on and you would write down the time that you're starting and then stopping. And the reason why I don't like this one as well is because you're going to have to write down the actual time. And so when someone walks in the room and you're starting and stopping things, you're having to put down the time each time. So you might, if you start and stop something even 10 times in a day, you're going to have to write those times down so that your assistant can then calculate it. But that's required in order for you to truly be capturing your time. And look, there is an ethical component to this. I'm not going to preach to you guys, but if you're billing your client by the hour, you sure as heck should be doing it and truly documenting, the exact times. So you can write those times down and then you just do like a super, super brief description. That's going to save you a little bit of time because if you are writing, so when I see a lot of timesheets, it still requires you to put the client, the matter, the description, and then it's just like you just put the total amount down. Well, unless you're just doing true block billing without any interruptions, that's part of the problem, right? Is like you don't know how much time to write down or the description, like you want to get it perfect, so it takes time, so then you skip over that. Or it's like, oh, I got to write down this client matter number. You want to simplify it as much as possible so that it actually works. The most important part is just getting down the actual times that you're doing as opposed to trying to project at the end of the day how long it actually took, because you're just estimating at that point. But if you're a pen and paper person, again, it's more efficient to already have like some clients' matters written out on a grid for you so that you don't even have to worry about that piece of it, right? You're not writing that down. You're simply writing down what you're working on and basically all the start stop times that you can then give to your assistant, and they can calculate for you how much time you actually spent on it and can get that draft in. Okay. And then hack number 3 is dictation. Most people don't do the old school dictation. It's now all online, but you could use that or, some other app related to just catching notes, voice memos, anything like that can then go to your assistant. So maybe you're not even good at the pen to paper. If you can just have a set, app that allows you to throughout the day, just send in the information related to what you're doing, that too can help. It's a little bit more complicated because, again, that tends to assume that the way you're practicing law is in chunks, right? And you don't have any distractions. So if you're really doing it the right way, it would require you to do a quick note and say what the time was. And again, this is where you are not the one trying to figure out the time each day. You're just doing it concurrently so that you might say, okay, this is what just happened. This was from 10:15 until 10:45. And then, you have to pay attention. Okay, someone walked in at 10:45 or I just did this email. And then you jump back on and say, okay, for this client, I just did this. That was 7 minutes. Or this was from 10:53 until 11 o'clock, right? It's still requiring a little bit of effort on your part to pay attention to the timing. And so again, it's not that at the end of the day you're dictating it. It's not that you're having to recreate it in that sense, because again, you're then estimating. So it's the doing it in the moment that really makes a difference. And then again, your assistant can then come up with the actual calculations and the entries for you to then review. So I get the last two were pretty quick because they're just variations of the first one. This is really all about doing things as you go. It's the waiting, it's your trying to calculate the total time that is getting in the way. So listen to episode 99. This really is about creating a new habit, but you want to start doing it as you go, and this will be a game changer for you. Maybe you've tried these things before. Give them a go again. Keep a positive attitude. Be open to them working. Be open to believing that there is a solution for you. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been a game changer. I would love for you to get in front of your billable hours so you are no longer stressing about them either at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the year, and you just really get in front of it and it's no longer an issue for you. All right. I hope that's been helpful. Have a great week, and I'll be back soon. I am super excited to announce that the Life and Law Planner is officially here. It is more than just a calendar. It is a full planning system. If you want to take back your days, your weeks, your months, and your year, order your planner now. It will completely change your life and help you accomplish your biggest goals. There's only a limited quantity available, so go to lifeandlawplanner.com and order yours today.